Good evening and welcome to the what I would call Christmas season special edition of Chamber Report. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have a very special Christmas gift tonight. We're going to talk about Streetcar 23. But before we go into the bulk of the program tonight, just want to bring you up to date what's upcoming in the Chamber. Beginning of January, you will see a whole new thing brought out by the Nelson and District Chamber of Commerce, and that will be the bi-monthly newsletter, bringing you up to date on what's happening in the Chamber and how you can be involved. Also upcoming in January, on January 19th, on Saturday at 6 p.m., will be the 92nd Annual General Meeting. And I was just talking to our special guest, Mel Cooper of CFAX Radio. Mel Cooper used to be the president of the Victoria Chamber of Commerce. He's the general manager of CFAX Radio, and he's going to be speaking, and by the way, he's a very excellent speaker, very, very good. Heard him before. He's going to be speaking on I've Never Met an Enthusiastic Failure, and just hearing that title is enough for me. But I'm sure you'll want to get a ticket for that, and tickets will go on sale in January at the Chamber office, and you should call us at 352-3433 or drop into the office at 501 Front Street and to pick up your tickets for the 92nd Chamber Annual General Meeting. Tonight I have two very special guests. As you have probably seen around town, there's been increased publicity for Streetcar 23 through the new 1985 Chamber of Commerce calendar. And if you've seen the calendar just recently, it has pictures, of course, all the way through of it, of Streetcar 23 in different points throughout town when it ran here in Nelson. And of course, our future dream, and it's going to happen, it's just a matter of time that we're going to see Streetcar 23 running again. And of course, the calendar was a means of raising funds to purchase various things needed for the streetcar. Well, without further ado, I think we'll introduce my guests for this evening. On my immediate left, or depending how you're looking at it, my immediate right, if you're watching it from the audience, Lyle Ward.
Glad to be here, Phil.
You're an official, what shall we say, streetcar researcher?
That's correct.
Would you go around looking for streetcars, or?
No, just looking for research.
For research on streetcars.
Right.
Lyle, welcome to the program. And on my far left or right, however you want to look at it, is Carol MacLean. Carol, you're extraordinaire of all tasks and duties. You're the Chamber Secretary. But a lot of people know you for going out and selling and presenting them the streetcar calendar that's now printed.
Right.
And welcome to the program tonight.
Thank you very much, Phil.
Maybe I can start off. We sort of want to add a little Christmas flavor here. I was thinking of bringing Christmas cake and other things on the show, but you know I'm already fat enough. So, but Lyle, in our background here behind us is the picture of Streetcar 23. Just for our viewers tonight, so they can sort of identify. When was that picture taken, and what's involved with it? Where is it?
Well, the picture was taken in the late 1940s. I didn't get a date on exactly when, but it was taken down at Lakeside Park beside the stone waiting room, which is approximately near the Nelson end of the Big Orange Bridge. That's where the building was located, and that's where the picture was taken.
Okay. What people are wondering about Streetcar 23 and what's going to happen, of course, in the future on it. Maybe we can, just before we go into the future of Streetcar 23, we can go into a bit of the past. What year did not 23 necessarily, but what year did the streetcar line come about in Nelson?
Well, it originated in December 1899 and managed to have its ups and downs throughout history until June 20th, 1949, when it was taken over by buses.
Now, Streetcar 23, per se, it was a streetcar. It wasn't like the first car of the line. What era or what line or what number of order of cars bought by the city was Streetcar 23?
Well, there was a first series of cars that ran from 1899 to 1908, which were destroyed by fire. And there was probably 4 cars in that series. In 1910, the line was started again, and there was 2 new cars ordered, and Streetcar 24 was ordered as a 3rd car, as a backup replacement car in 1924, and it probably arrived here in 1925.
You're talking about Streetcar 23?
That's right.
Okay.
And it was already a used car, having been built in 1906 and used in Cleveland until 1924.
So in essence, 1906 to the current date, that's, quick math, Carol, what's that? 78 years?
Something like that.
Right.
Even though it's been completely restored almost now, that's a car that's about 78 years old.
That's right.
Some of the history, some of the what I call juicy tidbits of Streetcar. Okay, it started in 1899. I understand there was a bit of a tragedy, so to speak, on the initial run of Streetcar.
Yes, on the very first day that they ran the streetcars, December 23rd, 1899, a trial run was made down Kootenai Street to Hall Mines Road, and it had a 12% grade, which hadn't been tested good enough, and the first car lost its brakes and rolled on the corner, and the motorman lost his arm in the ensuing accident.
Bit of a tragedy, but I guess from there it went a little more smoother.
Well, until 1910, when after they recovered from the fire, the first day they ran the uphill loop, Cedar and Innes Street, the first car up was sitting waiting for snow to be cleared, lost its available breakage, and ran backwards and rolled at Carbonate Street, and one of the inspectors on the car lost a leg. Not a very good beginning for either date, actually, but from then on there were actually only minor accidents and a few slight ones causing white-haired motormen.
White-haired.
Other than that, there wasn't too many serious accidents.
I know a couple of them. For example, it lost. I think it hit a truck. Was it not?
Yes, it hit a truck below Baker Street on Stanley. And in the other accident, it came down Stanley, jumped the tracks, and sideswiped the Royal Bank.
Of course, I'm wondering, bringing all these stories where people are going to be scared when.
Yeah, I was just wondering about that. This is
But
what we hope when and if we get the streetcar on the streets, we will be not having any hills involved if we can help it. It will not run uphill, and we'll keep it on as level a grade as possible to eliminate any possible accidents.
Yeah, and I think when you consider over the probably 50-year span, a matter of maybe 4 major accidents,
That's right.
That's very minor, the safety ability of a streetcar, when you consider how fast do they travel.
Well, maximum 30 miles an hour, and I would
Downhill
imagine.
with the wind?
No, that was on the level. I'm sure from some of the old motormen's tales that coming down Innes Street out of control, they probably were doing more than 30, but they managed to make the corners. They are equipped with air brakes, government inspected air brakes, and they meet all safety regulations before they'll ever be on the track.
Okay. Carol, I just want to turn our attention to you for a second. Thanks, Lyle. When you were out approaching people on this promotion of Streetcar 23 calendars, you met a lot of people out on the street. What was some of the comments you got about the possibility of Streetcar 23 running again?
Well, I think that a lot of them realized that Streetcar 23 was being worked on, but I don't think a lot of people realized that the aim was to actually put it back on the street. And there were a lot of questions as to how this was going to be done. Some of them were negative, and others were most people were really excited about the thought that the streetcar was going to be run in Nelson, that it would be a real positive thing for Nelson's tourism, and they could hardly wait to see it actually happen.
Okay. And just ask you one more question. What what kind of response did you get, Carol, on the sales of the calendars?
I think the sales of the calendars were really positive. I think everybody that could support it did, and those that couldn't, of course, just couldn't financially handle it. But on the whole, it was really successful.
I think, just the directors talking about, I think the directors were very pleased with the individual, private individual, and business response on this. And of course the calendar is now out and available at merchant stores. And maybe, Lyle, I can just turn back to you now, and maybe, even though the camera can't zero in on this, could you sort of go a little bit, the first page itself, that is, looks like Streetcar 23 down at Lakeside Park.
Right, this is just another view of the main picture.
The one that we actually see behind us, but just a different shot.
Right, facing the other way, facing out toward the lake. And again, taken in about 1947, I believe, this one. And shows a much clearer picture of the little stone building that many people waited in the cold, but it did I guess, shelter a person from the wind. There was no heating in it, just a wooden bench around it.
I don't think the camera can pick it up that well, but maybe we can just go into a description of inside the calendar. Maybe just pass that over here, please, Carol. I noticed inside it, Lyle, you have quite an in-depth sort of what point-by-point history of the, and
right.
You laid this out, of what some of the main events that happened for the streetcar. How did you find all this data? Did you just go into the back of your back pocket and locate it all? Or I think people should realize how much there is into doing what you've done and researching here.
Well, there was three main sources. One was a bit of already recorded history on it by some local old-timers, going through old copies of the Nelson Daily News, and personally interviewing other older people that had been here for a long time or had been acquainted with the system itself.
Okay. And just sort of reviewing in the next pages, we of course have a little origin of Streetcar 23. Where was the origin of it? Where did it all start?
Well, the streetcar itself was built in Elizabeth, New Jersey in 1906.
New Jersey, eh?
New Jersey.
Okay.
And was one of a series of 25 that was delivered to the city of Cleveland for use there, and was used there for 18 years and was well used because it was the only one that survived the scrap pile. All the others by 1924 or very shortly thereafter had been scrapped. Ours was the only one that was left in one piece, and Nelson picked up on the idea.
Just turning back to you, Carol, tell me, do you think people were pleasantly surprised at how far the restoration of the streetcar had progressed?
I think that most people were probably aware of the progress of it. It was in the parade this summer, and a lot of people had seen it there. People that are interested in it, I think they make a point of finding out. So that I think that a lot of them were pleasantly surprised about the fact that it might be on the streets of Nelson. I think some people thought that it was just going to be restored and it would sit someplace. But they weren't aware of the next phase of it.
Okay, and what is some of the, of course you work down at the chamber office also. We hide you in the corner though. No, just kidding. What is some of the feedback that you've had since the fact that the calendar has come out? What are the comments on the fact that we're taking this move to promote streetcar through the calendar?
Well, I think most people want to know when it's going to be here, like they would like it to be here right now.
Okay.
Anyway.
Okay, great. Thanks, Carol. This is another reason for this special edition on Streetcar 23. We want to spend some more time, actually, as a chamber, explaining some of the things that will be involved if it goes in certain areas down the future. Some of the things, if a streetcar is properly restored, What are the problems, what are not necessarily the problems, but the sort of bad taste in putting a streetcar on rubber tires and that kind of thing? What are some of the bad taste, or what I call restoration problems behind that, Lyle?
Well, I don't know, a streetcar originally has steel wheels and goes on tracks. If they wanted a trolley bus, then they would put it on rubber tires, and we could track one down from Vancouver or something like that. To have it self-propelled with its own gas or diesel engine just isn't a streetcar. That isn't what operated in Nelson. We haven't changed our heritage buildings over to plastic bricks yet, I don't think. So it's still true heritage, and that's what we had originally planned to do with the streetcar, make it as it originally was, maybe touch it up a bit from what people remember it in the early days, but it's going to be basically original and run that way.
And really, when the reconstruction work was being done in it, they kept to the original as much as possible, but there was some replacement of certain structures so it would be structurally sound to run on the track. Is that not true?
Right. Well, it was ran for 43 years roughly, and time had taken its toll on various metal parts through stress, and then sitting out the lake for 25 years, sitting outside, had taken definite toll on woodwork parts, and these parts had to be replaced. If it was built as a museum piece, it could have sat there with a lot less work, but our first idea was to make it run, and we built around that idea.
Okay. Thanks, Lyle. Carol, what were some of the concerns that you heard as you traveled about town?
Well, I think one of the biggest concerns was the fact that Nelson streets might be torn up again.
Okay. Let's deal with that problem first of all. Not that we know all the details, nor do we pretend to know them all, but in order for a streetcar to be constructed, Lyle, and put back on the street, what are some of the things that would have to be done? Whether it was Baker Street or wherever, what would have to be done?
Well, the first basic thing is the laying of the track. We have to get clearance from different services such as water and electrical, telephone and gas. Just to dig the streets, we have to make sure it's within the city budget somewhere for repaving to go around the track, and then the overhead pole and wire system. It will not be as cluttered as the old days. If we run the car on the street, it'll go down a lane of traffic, not down the center of the street.
So, stop right there. How wide is a streetcar?
No wider than your average freight delivery truck.
No wider than your average freight delivery truck.
Right.
And they can actually make it between the center line and those new rest areas.
In the amenity areas, there's enough room for 2 freight trucks to pass there with no problem. So there will be no problem with the streetcar passing through that area.
Okay, dealing further with the concerns, fact that, yes, of course, the pavement would have to be torn up in order to place track. Of course, that's one of the things that will have to be done in order to place the track. But is there any problem, once it's done, for cars to drive along where that track is?
Well, for those of you folks that were driving in that era, Baker Street tracks were level with the pavement, but I've noticed in the pictures that places like Nelson Avenue, you definitely didn't change lanes unless it was at an intersection, because your track was about 3 or 4 inches higher than the pavement. In this case, all our track will be completely flush with the pavement, so there will be no problem with changing lanes or passing or anything like this. And it'll be adhered to strictly that come frost periods or frost heaves, that the track will be leveled immediately, so there is no problem for traffic.
For the cars traveling
Right.
on the road. Okay. Carol, what were any other concerns that you heard about?
Well, I think when people thought about the streetcar running on the street, they visualized it going up the middle of Baker Street and going back down the middle of Baker Street, and of course they wanted to know where all the rest of the traffic was going to go. But
Okay. So really what we're looking at here then is going one way on one lane, just a regular lane that a freight truck would drive
That's right.
on, and returning down another street, not necessarily returning down Baker and hogging up
Right.
Baker Street itself. Okay, and we pretty well have answered the fact of where the track would be located in one lane.
Right.
This is all, of course, has not happened, but this is all that if it was to happen, would be sort of what would take place.
Right, and it may eliminate double parking on the line that it goes, because the streetcar cannot pull out and go around a double parked car, so there won't be too many people jumping out of their cars to run into a store for a second or so.
Yes, yeah, that could
There'll
pose
be a loud
problem.
clanging of the bell, and I'm sure they won't do that more than once.
Okay. Other concerns, Carol, that you heard while you were out hoofing the beat there?
Well, I think people getting on and off the streetcar and where the streetcar was going to stop, they visualized that it would hold up the whole of Baker Street, wherever it was.
Okay, what's the standard speed limit on Baker Street? By bylaws, I think it's 30 kilometers an hour, is it not? 20 miles an hour?
18 miles an hour, yes, that's
That's the bylaw, is it not? And the average person who drives downtown does not zip along at 30 miles an hour. They're usually at 20 miles an hour. So I know myself,
that's to be hoped anyways.
Let's we hope that there are law-abiding citizens like you, Lyle, and like Carol.
Yes.
The streetcar itself, what is it like in picking up speed and slowing
Well, it
down?
has good pickup, being electrically inducted. It's, I don't know, it can get to 30 miles an hour fairly quickly, even though it weighs 18 or 19 ton. It will stop for each light. Other than that, picking up passengers, if there's not too big a lineup, the unloading and loading with a wide rear door should be fairly quick as far as we know. We have to visit some places this next summer that have streetcars in operation already and just see how they work. But we don't foresee any major traffic blockage. They cannot pull over to the curb the way the buses do. But in the old days when they ran down the center of the street, I don't know how they did it with cars going every which way trying to get out of their way. And so the passengers didn't get run over when they got let off. It's got to be safer the way we're going to do it now, at least for the passengers.
Do you think that that streetcar will actually be a bulk in the way on Baker Street?
Oh, I'm sure a few truck drivers and a few taxi drivers might see it in the way, but the average motorist will definitely get used to it once he sees the tourists it's bringing to town and how many people are riding it. He'll, I'm sure, learn to appreciate it.
And that we'll dwell on in a second. I think that's a very important point. Was there any other concerns, Carol? I just thought maybe we could deal with them now on the show and just talk about them.
Well, I think the overhead wires were another concern.
Okay, overhead wires? Lyle, what's basically involved in overhead wires? Do we need 5,000 telephone poles and 16 dozen wires? What's needed to run a streetcar?
Well, we should be able to cut the amount of poles in half from what ran in the old days, because by running down the center of the street in the old days, the main power line had to be supported from each side, and thus a pole on each side. Now, by running it down one particular lane, we'll have one pole with an overhanging arm with the power wire off of it. Now,
How many poles per block? Just a guesstimate.
probably 4 poles per block, but
4
that
poles.
is just a guesstimate.
Just a guesstimate,
Yes.
though. That's not necessarily accurate, but just a guesstimate. So we're not talking poles all over the place, and yet really when you look at the heritage, if you want to be technical, of Nelson, poles were a part of the heritage.
Right. The wire has to be suspended at least 17 feet in the air from the pavement, but the poles do not necessarily have to be as tall as telephone poles to support that wire. Downtown they will have a heritage theme to the pole, probably a metal type pole. What is used in any other district, I'm not sure
Okay.
at this time.
Carol, just getting back to the calendar that you went out and presented to many merchants and individuals, how many supporters, approximate supporters, were gotten for the calendar, the purchase packages? Just a rough guesstimate.
I can't remember what the total.
We're looking at approximately what, about 200, I guess, 202 packages that we were discussing the other day.
Right.
On that
202.
basis. What? No, it's my turn to be stumped. No, I just forgotten what I was going to say. Of those people that supported, what was in their packages, not only in buying calendars, what is that they got within the calendar?
Well, everybody that bought a package of 15 calendars also got a small ad in the calendar, like choosing one day of the year of their choice, providing it hadn't already been chosen by somebody else. So, example, if they have a business uptown, then they would put their business name or maybe a small logo, or maybe they have a business slogan like that they would like to introduce.
Mm-hmm.
But basically what it was the name of the business and the telephone number.
Okay. And of course, we looking at the calendar here, we'd like to give credit where credit is due. Who were some of the people that were involved in making the calendar a success? Not only, of course, the many people that supported it financially, but who were some of the other people who made the calendar a success?
You mean who bought the calendar? Or?
Well, not necessarily bought the calendar, but provided the materials for us.
Well, I think Lyle probably did all of that.
Mr.
Provided
Ward
all
here
the
today.
research material, right.
It's funny, we would have him on the program tonight at the same time. Certainly, Lyle Ward was very instrumental in it. Well, who were some of those photos in there? Of course, you didn't take them. Where did those photos come from?
Well, the majority of the photos came from a fellow in Wisconsin that I found through a contact in Vancouver. This fellow in Wisconsin had not taken the pictures himself, but had purchased them from a fellow in California who had been here in the late 40s, particularly to take pictures of streetcars around the country. And I believe this will happen again once our car is running. Trolley fans across Canada and U.S. will come to Nelson just to take pictures of it because it is unique. The one picture in the calendar of Streetcar 23 at Lakeside Park with the motormen and conductors and servicemen beside them was supplied to me by Mr. Dave Webster of Nelson, who was a retired motorman. And many other pictures from my collection have come from all across the States and Canada, and I've just recently written to Austria. Somebody there either was in Nelson in the early days or has ended up with pictures, and I'm now trying to locate these because there's one important one in there of an interior shot of 23, which we desperately need at this time because nobody can really remember what the interior was exactly like. And the picture is as close as we're going to get, and this one was in Austria, so I've just written to try to get a copy of it.
Okay, great. And I've just been informed that our time's just about run out. And on that note, I think what I'd like to do right now, first of all, is thank you, Carol, for the tremendous job
My
that you
pleasure.
did on the streetcar calendar. And I want to thank you, Lyle.
Thank you, Phil.
And many other people that we want to thank. Many other people that we'd like to thank would be including the many merchants and residents that were involved, the many other people that were involved in it. We want to thank Lena Wimster Printing for doing a fine job. And we want to thank, of course, Shaw Cable for allowing us this time to come on air and talk about some of the concerns of Streetcar 23. This has been the special, if you want to use ho, 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 Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year edition of the Chamber Report. We're going to continue to bring further updates on Streetcar 23 in the new year. Thank you for watching us on Chamber Report, and my thanks to Carol MacLean and Lyle Ward for joining me. Good night from Chamber Report.